Have you been struggling to make blonde hair look realistic with colored pencils? Let me show you the techniques. After I shared how I draw blonde hair with graphite, someone asked me how to do it with color. So today I'll show you which colors I use, how I layer them, and how I create a realistic look. So grab your colored pencils and let's get started. Here you can see the reference photo I'm going to use, so let's quickly go over the colors. I already drew a quick sketch, and this is Bristol smooth paper. And the colored pencils I use are Caran d'Ache Luminance, so these are swatches of the colors. And the colors I'm going to use are white, buff titanium, and the Primerose, and also the brown ochres. But if you look at the reference photo, you can see that the brown ochre, this color is a bit too orange brown. So I'm also going to mix it with the raw umber. I usually use the raw umber to neutralize a color if it's a bit too saturated, and then the sepia for any darker shadows. So those are the colors I'll be using. And before we start, I want to tell you that these techniques that I'm going to show you are the same I use to draw any type of hair. So for any different hair color, you will just use different colors. And for different hair types, you will use different pencil strokes. Like instead of back and forth strokes for straight hair, you will draw more curved hair for the wavy hair, or for the textured hair, you will draw smaller C curves. So you build up the layers with the colors you choose depending on the hair color, and then you follow the direction of the hair. And for the highlights, I either use a stick eraser or a craft knife. And I will have the materials I use listed under the video. And the video lesson where I draw these step by step is available inside the membership. Now let's get started with the first layer so I can show you how I do this step by step. Now before I start the coloring, I want to lighten the sketch just a bit for the lighter areas. You don't want the graphite showing through, especially here for those lighter. So I usually draw my sketch a bit darker so that it's available, so that you can see it on camera, but you want to keep your sketches as light as possible. Okay, so if I look at the reference photo, I usually start creating the midtones, slowly build up the layers, and then use the eraser for the highlights or the craft knife, depending on how thin the stroke is or how much layers you have. Let's start with the lightest, with the brown ochre 50%. So you have brown ochre, and then you have a lighter one, the brown ochre 50%, and then a brown ochre 10%. Those are three different values from the same color. I'm going to start with the 50%, and I'm just going to start following the direction of the hair that I see. And always use light pressure when you build up the layers. And yeah, like I said, I'm going to follow the direction and also focus on where I see the midtones. And when you draw with something with color, try to keep in mind that the values are more important than the exact same color you see in the reference. The values will make your drawing look 3D and realistic and not the exact same color. So focus on the values. Make sure that you have the midtones, the shadows, and the highlights correct. Instead of trying to get the exact same match with the color. So you can see that where it's lighter, I also just keep that area lighter. So those flyaway hairs, that's what we're going to use the eraser or the craft knife for. But if you have a larger area where it's lighter, you can just try to draw around it. Okay, now I'm going to use the raw umber 50% because I'm going to try to neutralize this color a bit. And at the top you see that it's a bit darker. So I'm just going to use light pressure with every layer I add, because that way you can mix the colors gently together and then start to build up layers that way. If you use too much pressure, then you won't be able to mix the colors together that well, and it will also prevent you from adding more layers. So you see that the raw umbers are really yeah, kind of like a grayish brownish color. It's I always use it to, because some colors, like you see here, the brown ochre is orange brown, the burnt ochre is more red brown, burnt sienna is like that purple pink brown. It's the colors can be too saturated sometimes, especially when you're going to draw portraits or hair. And then the raw umber is a perfect grayish brownish color, yeah, to neutralize. Now I also want to, because the blonde hair is also a bit, yeah, it's not yellow, orange, brown, yeah, a mix of yellow, orange, brown. This is the Primerose. So let's add a bit of this. And then also go over the parts where the highlights are. And I'm still using light pressure. So when you're going through the first layers, I want you to remind yourself that you don't critique your drawing yet. These layers that you first need to go through are kind of like, you can call them the ugly stage, and you will need to go through it to make something. Especially with colored pencils, it can take a longer time before it starts to look like something. So you need to push through, trust the process, and just keep on going to get through that ugly stage. At first it will just look like a simple colored pencil drawing, like maybe like what a kid will do. But the key is to keep on going, to keep on building up layers. Okay, so try to keep that in mind. So you see that if I would stop here, okay, you have a piece of hair, kind of looks like it, but you want that realistic look. So let's keep on layering. And that's why I say it's important to start with light layers, because you want to add multiple layers to it. Let's see, I want to darken a bit more. So let's use the brown ochre and light pressure. And you can already see that it's looking a bit orange brown, and in the reference photo you see it's more like that golden color. So we're going to layer some more over this, so don't worry. Keep on adding light layers, light pressure. And now I start to focus on smaller areas at a time. So I have this part, and then I have this part, and then I have this part. That's what I also do when I draw hair on a portrait. I try to draw smaller sections. Okay, so in this smaller section, you see a darker area here, darker part here, here below where it's tucked in, because here you get that curl. So here it's a bit darker, and up here. And then in between, we also have some darker values. Okay, so let's keep on focusing on this area. Now, because it's a bit too orange brown, I'm going to use the raw umber. And you see that this neutralizes the color a bit. It gets less orange, but keep on using light pressure. And if you think this is turning out too dark, you can always use the raw umber 50%. But this part is a bit darker, so we can use this one. Here you see that it flows a bit, like follow the direction of the hair. Keep on using light pressure. You might want to start using harder pressure, also because you see like the white of the paper showing through. But that will, the layer will get smoother the more layers you add. So just keep on using light pressure. You'll need to practice drawing with light pressure. So you might think it's darker, I'm going to use harder pressure, but no, if I need it darker, I use another, like this sepia, to darken. I don't use harder pressure with this color to darken it. Okay, now let's add a bit of the Primerose to get that yellow golden touch. And here you can also see the blonde hair. So you can see how I build up the layers, and I use the exact same colors that I'm using here, but you see that you will need to keep on going, keep on adding layers to get that yeah, natural look of hair. I'm also going to go over the highlights, because the highlights aren't that they aren't the same as the white of the paper. They do have some lighter value. Still light pressure. And you see that colored pencils can take a time. I'm only focusing on this small area, and we're not there yet. So you do need to have patience. And let's see, I'm going to add a bit of the sepia to darken. This is the sepia. Really light pressure. Just in a few areas where it's darker. So you don't want to rush, and you really want to take your time when you're drawing with colored pencils. But drawing should be fun, so just try to take your time. If you don't have enough time, just sit down for 10 minutes, continue another time. As long as you slowly build up the layers and just keep on coloring. Okay, I think that's dark enough, yeah. Let's use the raw umber 10%. I want to slowly go over the layers. I'm still using light pressure, but I want to kind of like mix and blend the layers together, and that's what I use lighter colored pencils. That's when I start to use lighter colored pencils. So I start from light to dark, and then I go back to the lighter colors. But I see that I still want to add a bit more of that yellow orange, so I'm going to use the brown ochre 10% instead of the raw umber, because the raw umber is too that's a good color to neutralize if you have too much color, but in my case I want to add more color. Okay, so I'm trying to mix and blend the colors by glazing this. And in some areas I use a bit more pressure, but yeah, like kind of like light to medium pressure. And let's use the Primerose again. And now once you can feel that once you have more layers that you can use a bit more pressure. So this is the time where you can start to add a bit more pressure. Really adding this yellow color. So this gives me that blonde. And now that you're just focusing on this smaller area, it's time to move on to another area, and that will all, finishing it all, what I want to say is, if you're not satisfied with a smaller area, don't worry, move on to the next, and once you finish it all, it will all come together. So try to keep that in mind. This is the brown ochre. I'm going to darken a bit here. And again, because you have a bit more layers, you can feel that you need to use a bit more pressure, but still not hard pressure. Just continue. And it's okay if you go over the highlights. You can still use the eraser for that. With raw umber, darken again, because when you go over the darker areas with the lighter colors, you start to mix and blend the colors together, but then you lose some of that darker value. So then you go, so then you layer again with the darker values. It's kind of like a bit back and forth. I start light to go to dark, and then I'm back to light again, but then you need to darken some areas. But now you will notice that you already have a smoother result now. So you don't see the white of the paper showing through anymore. And let's see, before we have too much layers, you can use the eraser. And you see some, like those flyaway hairs. If you have too much layers, so I can feel that it's more difficult to erase now. It's still possible, but I notice that it's getting more difficult. So I think next I'm going to use the craft knife. Yeah, so I wanted to show you that you can use the eraser, but it's more difficult. I'm going to use the craft knife later, first with the brown ochre. Let's fill this in. And once you add those details with the craft knife, then you will really start to see, make it look more realistic. Let's focus on this area now with the brown ochre. And I think I already used the brown ochre. Let's use the raw umber now. The raw umber. So what you can also use the eraser for is, you see here those flyaway hairs need to be a bit lighter. So then I use the eraser, just go over it to lighten a bit. Okay, so continue with the raw umber to make it look a bit darker and neutralize the color a bit. So when you're drawing something with graphite, you only have to focus on values. Build up the layers, make sure you have the shadows, the highlights, and the midtones correct. But with color, you need to focus on the values and the color. So with color, I always say just put down, start somewhere. Just put down, choose your main colors, pick out your main colors, start layering. You can always change and mix colors as you go. The values are the more important, so don't worry about the color too much. And you can see that I picked out main colors, and then I just see, oh, is it turning out too orange? Then I try to neutralize it, if I don't have enough color, I add some more color by focusing on the value, and then the color is just something you can tweak and change with the more layers you add. Okay, so with the brown ochre 10%, I'm going to mix the colors a bit together. And then I'm going to use the Primerose to add more of that yellow. So once you know the steps, it's just about putting them down, putting the, starting to color and just seeing. So now I need more color, I need more yellow, so now I'm going to use the Primerose. So just focus on what you're drawing and see, do I need more color? Do I need to neutralize it? Do I need to go darker? Do I need to lighten somewhere? Yeah, that's what you just need to keep in mind, and just that's how you go step by step. So I hope I'm not complicating it too much for you, but like I said, you just need to start with the layering and then you fix and change as you go. So you see that I'm blending all of the colors together with the Primerose. And now I can see, okay, I need a bit more darker value here. So let's use the Sepia first with light pressure. Don't want it too dark. So here it's darker, here it's lighter in the middle because it's round, and then here it's also a bit darker. It's not too dark. I think this is dark enough. And now I check, okay, I have it darker, but I want, it's too dark brown now, so I want it more a bit orange, golden brown. So let's use the brown ochre 50% to mix over that dark brown sepia color. See that? So now we do have the darker value, but we needed it a bit more color. So you add a bit more color that way. So I hope by explaining sharing my thoughts out loud, that will help you when you're also making your own color decisions. Because I know sometimes color can make it a bit, it can feel more scary to create a drawing with color. But I think you will need to just give it a go and trust yourself, trust your process, trust the process, and just focus on what you're drawing. Just look back at the reference photo, look at the colors, look at the values. Okay, so I have the values. Okay, now I want to use, this was the brown ochre 50%, so I want to use the brown ochre 10% now to blend the colors a bit more together. Using a bit more medium pressure to blend and mix the colors. And then I check, okay, I still need a bit more of that yellow. So next I'm going to use the Primerose again. And now that I'm using lighter colors onto the darker values, I still check, is it making it too light? Or is it still okay? I'm using the kneaded eraser to lighten here, because these are some thinner, lighter, like the ends of the hair. Okay, now I want to use the Primerose to add more of that yellow golden color. And at this stage, you still need to trust the process. We're going to add those final details with the craft knife. So just keep on going. You can do this. Also trust yourself. Okay, so blend this. You see how it starts to look more like hair. Okay, here. I still see some graphite lines here. Let's lighten those. And we also need some flyaway hairs. Let's see if we have enough layers for the craft knife. So this is a ceramic craft knife. And you don't want to use it like this, of course, because you will cut the paper. I hold it to like this, and then I use the side of the tip of the knife. Okay, but you want to have enough layers of pencil before this works, for this to work. And now you can slowly look at the reference photo and see where you see those kind of like those flyaway hairs or those lighter areas. And you can see that this step really adds more texture. So you can see I'm just scraping off the pencil, the color. But you can only do this in the last step. So if you're using a knife, craft knife now, and it doesn't work, don't press harder, because you will damage the paper. You just need another layer. So add more pencil layers. So here it's lighter. I don't have as much layers as here. So I noticed that I can't really scrape. So I'm going to add some more layers there first. Let's see. Looking at the color, do I need it darker? You can squint your eyes, and I see that I want a bit more darker here to get that fold here. Let's see with the raw umber, see if that one will be dark enough. Otherwise, a layer of the sepia. I think this is fine here. Let's add this darker value, and also here. So now squint your eyes and check where you want or need any darker value. And it's okay if you go over where you added highlights with the craft knife, if it's okay. So here it's a bit darker. I'm focusing on the darker values. And here. Yeah, I think this is dark enough. Don't need it darker. For here, I'm going to use the 50 raw umber 50%. Don't want it too dark, but I do also want to add some more layers, so I can use the craft knife here. Okay, yeah, with this is still the raw umber 50, I'm going to blend a bit here. Here it's a bit darker. Okay, now let's check the color. I think I don't need it more orange brown, but more yellow. So let's use the Primerose. And And yeah, the value is looking good now. So squint your eyes to remove all detail, just focus on the values everywhere. I need a bit more darker raw umber here. And here. I'm using a bit more pressure to add a bit more layers here, so I can use the craft knife here as well, where it's lighter. Okay, let's use the craft knife. Give it some more texture again. See that texture you create? This is really perfect for hair details, hair texture or fur texture. Okay, then you see here. And because you have more layers, it's difficult to erase. So the eraser doesn't really work anymore now. The eraser will help if you need to lighten an area. But really those, you see those details? You see how that really brings or gives your drawing that hair texture that you need. Okay, and then here's some lighter. I changed the angle of how I hold this. So you don't want to cut, you just want to scrape, gently scrape off a layer of the colored pencil. That's why you need enough layers to do that. See how that really makes a difference? Now let's add those flyaway hairs to the sides with, I think, just a neutral color. Yeah, the raw umber 50. Let's see how that goes. So you see that, make sure that you have a sharper tip. I'm going to sharpen real quick. And for this I use an electric eraser. Perfect. Okay, you see how this also gives that, make it look realistic by adding these flyaway hairs. And I'm going to lighten these to make them look more to the back. So I'm using really light pressure, just add, here it's lighter, so I want to use, see if that's not, this is the raw umber 10%, if it's not too light. And I think that's fine for here. See here, the hairs are just really light and messy. Here I want these a bit lighter. So clean off the eraser and just erase them a bit, make them lighter. Look, like they're more to the back. I always like to lighten these. Make them look more natural because these hairs are really thin and light. Let's lighten this one a bit more. And then use the raw umber 10% to add a bit more, but they're really light. And the raw umber 50%. Add some here. These can be a bit darker. So you see how that really makes a difference? Here, this can be a bit lighter, the tips. So that's an important step. Using the craft knife, you want enough layers. And adding these flyaway hairs, you see how that really makes a difference. And here, I erased a bit, or I removed too much, so let's fix that. You can just go back and then add a layer, or just draw around it if you need. And yeah, flyaway hairs, erase them to lighten them, or use a lighter pencil, make them more to the back, and craft knife for those details. Here it's a bit lighter. Let's lighten this a bit more. Here it's highlights. So after I focus on the darkest values, I then check, do I also have the highlights? So it was a bit lighter here. That's what I'm scraping away now. And then you can use the white. I actually didn't even use the buff titanium. I didn't need to. This is the white. And then you can, if you need to lighten it, you see that? And then I miss a few details here. Let's use the raw umber 10%. Let's see if that's, no, that's too light. Let's use the raw umber 50%. Add some hair details. Yeah, hair texture. Otherwise it looks too smooth. See that? Just fill that in a bit. Okay, I think that's it. These are the steps. And yeah, you can see how I go back and forth. And remember, this is just a small part of a hair piece. So it's not, yeah, if you focus on this smaller hair piece, remember that this will be part of a bigger drawing. So if you're going to draw a whole portrait, you won't be focusing on this small area. Let's say you're maybe not satisfied with this small area. If you're going to draw a whole portrait, you're not going to keep on focusing on this small area anymore. You're going to look at the whole drawing as a whole. Or if you're going to paint or color like a cat or a dog, and you're going to create all of this fur texture, because fur is actually the same steps as hair. It's just shorter hair strokes. What I wanted to say, you won't focus on each smaller area. It will all come together once you keep on going and create a whole full drawing, portrait drawing, or so yeah, these are the steps, but you're going to complete the whole drawing by keep on going. And this is just a part of, so this is just a part of hair. But then you're going to use this small piece to add more, and more, and then here will be the face, and that's how you will complete a whole portrait drawing. So before you draw portraits, I would say practice drawing hair like this, smaller pieces of hair. Practice drawing the skin tones, practice drawing features first. You want to be able to draw a realistic eye with colored pencils first. You want to be able how to draw a nose, a mouth. So if you're a beginner now and you don't know how to draw portraits yet, practice these smaller hair pieces and practice facial features first, and then it will all come together. And I would want to give you an advice. Trust yourself, trust the process, and it all takes practice. So you just need to practice and keep on going. Okay, so that's it for now. And if you enjoy this tutorial and you want to keep learning, we have over 200 video lessons waiting for you. You can join us inside the Artistic Journey, an online membership designed to help you improve your drawing skills step by step. Once you join, you'll get access to all video lessons so you can choose a medium to focus on, whether that's graphite, charcoal, colored pencil, or maybe watercolor. There's something for you to start learning. Now it's time to take your art skills to the next level. The link to join is under the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.